Eugene Debs once said, and one of my favorites, I mean, he ran for president 5 times. He once said something that was almost haunting. At the end of his career, a reporter came up to him and said, "Mr. Debs, what's your greatest regret?" And he said, "My greatest regret? My greatest regret is that under our Constitution, the American people can have almost anything they want, but it just seems like they don't want much of anything at all." That deals with low expectation levels. Out of the rubble of World War II in Western Europe, people demanded and got by law all these things which we still don't have by law. They demanded and got universal health care, university-free tuition, a living wage by comparison with ours, laws that facilitated trade union organization. They got 4 weeks paid vacation. It's now 4 to 6 to 8 weeks paid vacation. They got paid maternity leave. They got paid family sick leave. They got decent daycare, got decent public transit. And we have none of that by law. We've got to focus on raising the demand of the public and the higher expectation levels that translate into civic energy, muscular civic demands, worker demands, consumer demands, demands by patients that say we will no longer tolerate a pay or die system by corporate greed that is homicidal in this country. As a law student, I learned that in the mid-50s, 11 states prohibited women from serving on juries. And I wrote about it and fought it. I learned also that women pay more. They get more unnecessary operations. They're given more unnecessary drug prescriptions. They're ripped off in credit. They're ripped off in almost everything they buy, from cars to clothing to dry cleaning. And we wrote about it. And we put out 2 books, Why Women Pay More. And we've adopted the entire agenda of the National Organization for Women. We also learned about the plight of migrant workers. I wrote about migrant workers in the 1950s. I went and worked with some of them for a short period of time here in California. They were called contemptuously wetbacks. I know what needs to be done to elevate their status. All workers in our country who work must have equal rights, or none of the workers will eventually have any rights. I fought against human trafficking in women and children. I was enthralled by the expansion of co-ops in Western Europe in the pre-World War II period. And I wanted more of that in this country and worked on it. I was very keen on electoral reform, public funding and public campaigns, getting rid of gerrymandering that strips voters of even 2 similar major party choices. I didn't like the idea of third parties being marginalized with political bigotry. You want to see someone who can argue the cause of third parties, historically, contemporarily, starting out with, you, 2 parties, are political bigots. You are denying voters their full choice of candidates. I wrote my first article on obstacles to third parties back in 1959. Where were some of you then, by the way? We do have to recognize, as I did early on, the necessity of separating church and state, the necessity of ending the death penalty, except the corporate death penalty. The necessity of the separation of corporation and state, and the subordination of the corporation, stripping it of its constitutional rights, because only human beings should have constitutional rights. I recognize that no movement can survive without appealing to the youth, without recruiting the youth. And I started many, many groups, public interest research groups all over the country in that purpose. I also learned that you have to keep learning. You have to keep your options open for revision. You can never be so doctrinaire that you give a free pass to regimes who call themselves socialists who are brutal, homicidal dictators. You understand? And the same is true. I never gave a free pass to corporate union bosses who did sweetheart deals like the mine workers before they were reformed and the Teamsters with management, driving out honest small unions, the way SEIU is trying to do against the California Nurses Association. We have to oppose militarism in all its forms. Even Eisenhower and MacArthur told us about militarism, and they should know what they were talking about. And they were very worried about it. Half of our federal budget, operating budget, now goes to the military budget, full of waste, fraud, corruption, redundance, and starving people while they feed the military machine. We are now in a state of perpetual war. Both parties are supporting perpetual war. We've got to withdraw from Iraq. We've got to get out of Afghanistan. We've got to support the Israeli and Palestinian peace movements and not continue to pump $4 to $5 billion with diplomatic cover into the Israeli military repression and occupation and brutalization and theft of Palestinian land. We have to recognize there is a growing wave of anti-Semitism against Arabs, the largest members of the Semitic race. Anti-Semitism against Arabs must be stopped. We need to equate ownership with control. We own the public lands. We own the public airways. We own trillions of dollars of work and pension funds. We own billions and billions of dollars of government research and development, which has created and built all these industries that then take for granted that they did it. But we don't control any of it. We don't even have our own radio and TV stations. We are forced to give away our hard rock minerals. No other country in the world gives away its hard rock minerals to multinational corporations who pay them nothing for it except $5 an acre. Nice deal. We have to connect this with the concentration of wealth and power in our country. We need to get rid of forms of autocracy like WTO and NAFTA. We should realize that these are systems of cruel and brutal globalization that are designed to destroy the nation state, which is the only entity now that has any possibility under popular arousal of fighting corporate dictatorial globalization. We need to drive into the presidential campaign of this year a comprehensive worker bill of rights with attention to living wages, with attention to pay equality, repealing the obstructions to workers like Taft-Hartley. No other Western country comes close to obstructing workers from their constitutional right to band together and collectively bargain against corporate power. We need also to recognize that the tax system is totally confiscatory of the working classes. This is part of the corporate class warfare against working families. And we propose, Nader and Gonzalez proposed, first, before you tax any workers, you tax what society likes the least and dislikes the most, starting with taxation of $500 trillion of security derivative transactions this year. We have to tax corporate crime. We have to tax pollution. We have to tax the addictive industries that are getting into our young people's bodies. We have to tax the gambling industries before you tax $1 of worker income. And never allow the tax on labor to be twice that and the tax on capital. I mean, isn't that the ultimate coup d'etat in taxation? When people are paying 35% tax on their labor and capital gains in the billions by some rich people, they get paid 15% tax if they help loophole it further. I want to conclude on this note. This election, our candidacy, Nader Gonzalez, is in a unique position to reach tens of millions of voters, to spread our message, and to put issues on the table like single-payer health care, preventing the 58,000 workplace deaths that occur every year, rolling back the violence of corporate globalization, it is just that, ending imperialistic wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, and impeaching Bush Cheney, the most impeachable presidency in the history of our country.